Good morning, everybody. Like everybody else, I am at home today. I have three small children. They are downstairs with my wife, so hopefully we won't get any interruptions from my 7-year-old, 6-year-old, and 2-year-old. But apologies in advance if we do. If we could go to my slide there, please, that would be great. So, um, I'm going to talk to you today. Well, what I was due to present on originally when we were having a physical event was around digital change and a report that we did last year. It still remains relevant, but what I'm going to do today is just I'm going to layer some learns that we've had in the last 12 or 14 weeks in relation to COVID-19 over the top of that report. So if we can click on to the next slide, please. Whilst we do that, just give you a bit of background on myself. My name is James Milligan. I presented at Beltec last year. My role is I look after the technology businesses for Hays across the UK, Ireland and EMEA. That's about 600 consultants that recruit contract and permanent roles. And I suppose one of the things I'm hopefully going to be able to bring to this talk today is just some insight around what we've seen across Europe in different countries and obviously how that then impacts on the market within Northern Ireland. If we click onto the next slide, please. The report that I'm going to talk to you about today was done in last year, in 2019, and this was prior to COVID-19, and basically the report was to explore the current and likely future impact of digital transformation and automation on employers and employees. And to assess what barriers to success were out there, or perceptions of barriers to success, and what actions needs to be taken by organisations to survive and thrive in this increasingly automated world. To put together the report, we carried out an extensive survey. We got over 14,500 responses from candidates and employers across the UK and Northern Ireland. And the survey was completed by professionals from a variety of organisation types across both the public and the private sectors. So if we click forward, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the definitions that we used when we did the report. So there's two sort of key themes that come through. The first one's digital transformation. If you click, hopefully that will drop down. That's the acceleration of business activities and processes to fully leverage the changes and opportunities of digital technologies and their impact in a strategic and prioritized way. And I suppose this is an area where a lot of the findings that we had originally probably would have changed significantly in the new world. The other element was around automation. If we click on that, hopefully that will drop down. And this is the alternative to manual processing. It's the creation of technology and its applications in order to control or operate a process automatically. The specific automation of technology, its application of tools available. And within our world, recruitment world, we use tools like Maya, which is a chatbot, DocuSign for online documents, chatbots, RPA, CRMs, etc., etc., etc. And then the final definition that I'm just going to quickly touch on is human value. And this is the application of people's competencies, skills, and experience to a job and individual task. So if we click forward, in a changing world that's advancing at a rapid pace, it's vital that employers understand what their workers want. It's this understanding applied accordingly to where your organisation is on its digital transformation journey that will ensure that you're equipped with the right skills to deliver change. If we click on the next slide, please. So digital transformation in last year was a top priority for organisations. Almost 9 out of 10 employers and employees agreed that investment in this area was top of their agenda, with 51% describing it as primary and 36% as secondary focus for their organisation. Now, I think we can all agree now that 100% of organisations are focused on digital transformation. Hand up. Sorry. And that's been created by the COVID-19. I'm sorry, I think from just the slides, there's somebody else that's standing in front of them. Hopefully everybody can still hear me. Created by the COVID-19 pandemic. And initially, we saw a surge in demand for people with cloud skills, with the ability to get their workforce working remotely. So people with virtualization skills, with Azure, with AWS skills, Office 365. So there's a rapid deployment of organizations that may well have had digital transformation and remote working on their agenda over the next sort of 2 to 3 years, but out of necessity had to deploy this. And then the secondary focus sort of after that happening was organizations became aware of the potential vulnerabilities of people being able to access these tools from homes, and had to have a focus then on cyber. And I'll talk a little bit more later on the sectors which are currently thriving, and some which are finding it a little bit more challenging in this COVID world. So if we click onto the next slide. So employers of all sizes are investing in digital technology, particularly automation. 82% of technology employers say they're investing in or plan to invest in automation. And this reflects the trend nationwide, where 66% of SMEs and 74% of large corporates are investing in automation. And if we click onto the next slide, we'll understand what the employers see as the main benefits for investing in automation. And the three main benefits that are to be gained from this are improved productivity, process efficiencies, and cost savings. And if we click onto the next slide, please. So before I talk about this, I think automation is an area where we haven't seen acceleration due to COVID-19. Okay, it still remains an organization's agenda. It's more around digital transformation and access to services for employees and their customers, which we've seen a big push on. I think, as we come out the other side of this and we look towards September and the back end of the year, I think we'll see a lot of the automation projects, which may have been part, pick up momentum as we start to sort of embrace this new world. So how many technology professionals are involved in automation projects, and in what areas? Well, almost half of the respondents say they're currently involved in an automation project. Of these, the respondents primarily deliver and customize technology integrations and are most likely to be delivering automation projects, either for their own organization, for external clients, for within the accountancy, finance sector, financial services, or HR recruitment and training. Similarly, the respondents who primarily build bespoke software technology solutions are most likely to be delivering automation projects for accountancy and finance, financial services, and engineering and manufacturing. If we click onto the next slide, and I think this probably looks at some of the points that were made in the previous presentation. Positivity around digital transformation and automation in the workplace doesn't necessarily mean that organizations are ready for change. Unsurprisingly, technology professionals and people working in technology functions feel as though automation and digital transformation should be embraced in the workplace. So if we go into the next slide, please. Almost a third of technology respondents say that their organization is not suitably well equipped to deal with change. Now, this was taken pre-COVID-19, and it would be very interesting to see, with what's happened in the course of the last 3 or 4 months, how respondents would feel now, given the necessity of change, that accelerated change that has had to happen as a result of COVID-19. And it will be very interesting when we go back out to market to sort of take a barometer to say, okay, well, how do you now feel about your organization's capacity to do that? If we click into the next slide, please. And this hasn't been helped by the fact that 70% of employees across the UK and Northern Ireland, across all professions, rate their understanding and their ability to use the latest digital technology in the workplace and at home as just average, with only a quarter consider themselves to be experts. Now, just an example of this is, for the last 12 months, I've been trying to push Microsoft Teams within my organization as a platform for collaboration. My role is international. It's across the UK, Ireland, and 13 European countries. I've really struggled with adoption of use of Microsoft Teams. Now that the COVID-19 obviously impacted us, and leadership from C-level all the way down has adopted Microsoft Teams, the whole organization is operating across Teams. So I'm not sure whether our mindsets will ever be the same again when it comes to change, because obviously out of necessity, we've had to be able to accelerate change or embrace change in a way that we've never had to before. And I think that fundamentally is probably going to have an impact on the way that we work forever. If we click on the next slide, please. If we then look at challenges around automation, the main challenge that employers expect to encounter is the lack of skills within their current workforce, which was cited by 58% of employers. And the lack of engagement and support from current staff also considered a major barrier to implementation of automation for employers. So let's have a look at how automation is impacting on jobs, and this is relevant to people in the audience, I suppose, who are either in technical roles or in roles that are going to be disrupted by technology. We can click onto the next slide, please, and onto the following one, please. So administration analytical tasks are seeing the biggest impact due to the introduction of automation. 45% of tech employers say that their administration tasks have changed, and nearly a third say that they've reduced. Conversely, almost half say analytical tasks have changed due to automation, and 22% say tasks have increased. If we click onto the next slide, please. Amongst all this change, employers must also combat skill shortages. It's not just a lack of technical skills which are impacting employers. So if we could just click onto two more slides, please. Yep. And one more after that, please. So 40% of technology employers don't believe they have the right expertise in place to exploit automation to the full. Skills shortages are endemic in this area, although those operating in the private sector appear to be in a better position than those within the public sector, with just under 2/3 indicating they have access to all or at least some of the skills they need, with only just over half within the public sector saying the same. So if we go into the next slide, please. As for the areas which skills gaps are most pronounced, while 42% of technology employers say they're just short of the technical skills, the same numbers say that they are short of soft and technical skills. So if we click onto the next one, please. So if we're drilling down into specific technical skills, employers say that short supply within their existing teams. 73% say project management, software development, change management, analytics, data science, program management. Now, given where we are and the impact of the pandemic and the likely impact that's going to have on people who are working in legacy skills, this is a really good opportunity if you are a candidate who's working for somebody and you're looking at the skill set and going, is this still relevant in the changing world, to take the opportunity to look at potentially reskilling, so that when we come out the other side, that you have the relevant skills. So, for example, if you're working in structured project management, have you looked at agile methodologies? If you're working in sort of traditional infrastructure, how well equipped are you to work in, on cloud platforms? So there is an opportunity here. If we click on one further slide, and then looking at soft skills, 70% of technology employers say communication, interpersonal skills are the shortest supply within their teams. So I think, what this is saying is, it's all well and good having the technical skills, but in the modern world, everybody needs to be able to communicate with each other and collaborate, understand the business requirements and translate them into technical requirements. And I think, organizations identify that whilst they might have the technical skill sets, in some instances, they're not complemented by the soft skill sets. So if we just click onto the next slide, please. So whilst we talk about sort of a positive mindset being required to deal with change, organizations haven't necessarily started sharing with candidates what the new skill requirements are in line with the journey the organization needs to go on. So despite widespread skill shortages and supply and demand dynamics being very challenging in a lot of the technology sector, 70% of employers say that they have not made, or nor do they plan to make any changes to the recruitment strategy as they look at developing the skills that are required for automation. And if we click onto the next slide, please. So 60% of technology professionals said they'd be attracted to an organization that's invested in digital transformation. And I think there's an opportunity here, particularly for traditional organizations, to start telling a story about the challenges that they have and why they need the skills or the people to overcome those challenges and embrace those, rather than shy away from them and be embarrassed potentially by the legacy platforms that they have. And I think, when you're speaking to technology candidates, that's something they find really interesting as a key challenge, particularly within public sector, which sometimes struggle to compete on salaries. But I think a strong purpose is very, very important. So if we click at the next slide, please. So as it stands, less than half the employers promote their organization's investment in digital transformation during that recruitment process. If we go into the next slide. And when in general, when it comes to successfully adopting automation in the workplace, an open culture is seen as being key. Now, if we go back to when we did the survey in I'm going to finish up here, I'm just going to talk a little bit now. We came back to doing the survey in 2019. Well, none of us could foresee the event of COVID-19. It's resulted in rapid change for every organisation as we've moved from working in a physical environment to a virtual environment. I think lots of organisations could do that previously, but never at the scale that we've done before. It's meant people that may have been resistant to change, and had an option not to adopt change historically, have now had to embrace it. Otherwise, they've not been able to do their work. And for me, I think it will be very interesting to see when we start returning to a post-COVID world, I'm not going to say a normal world, but a post-COVID world, what lasting impact that has for both organisations as how they view talent, where that talent's based. Or what sort of working hours that talent has, and for employees in terms of understanding or when new changes happen that is not related to COVID-19, whether people fall back into maybe some of the historical habits, or whether people now their mindset has shifted to being more of a software mindset, where they're more adaptable to change, more flexible. And I think, in my view is that, there's no going back. I think we've gone over we've gone over this hurdle, we've gone over this bridge, and the world's changed. And I think employers and employees are going to change accordingly to the new post-COVID-19 world. So that's where I leave you today.